Coordinated US-Japan action has lifted the yen, easing import costs for Japanese households while signaling closer currency coordination between the world's largest economies. This is Omni View, episode 132. Japan and the United States carried out joint currency operations that moved the yen to around 155 against the dollar. Japanese officials indicated they would act again if needed. The move followed weeks of yen weakness that had raised the cost of imported goods. Finance officials in Tokyo described the operations as a direct response to sustained pressure on household budgets from higher prices on energy and food imports. The yen had traded weaker for an extended period before the coordinated steps took effect. Nikkei Asia reports that Japanese policymakers view sustained yen weakness as a direct burden on household living costs through higher import prices. Bloomberg notes that U.S. participation reflects shared concern that prolonged yen depreciation could disrupt global supply chains and trade balances. Both outlets describe the intervention as a response to market conditions rather than a broader policy shift. Nikkei Asia further quotes Japanese finance official Katayama stating that authorities will not hesitate to intervene again if similar conditions arise. Bloomberg highlights that the yen's weakness had become a growing issue for both Japanese living costs and U.S. trade considerations. The factual record shows yen strength improved after the operations, though analysts continue to monitor whether the level holds without further action. What happens next? Authorities have signaled readiness for additional steps, and markets will test whether the new rate holds in coming sessions. Shifting now to Sudan. A Sudanese army drone struck a court session in a village held by paramilitary forces, according to a rights group. The army has not commented on the incident. The attack occurred amid ongoing conflict between the army and paramilitary groups. The strike targeted a location in a paramilitary-held village where civilians were present. Rights monitors documented at least 35 deaths from the single operation. BBC reporting highlights the civilian toll in a paramilitary-controlled area and notes the lack of official response from Sudanese authorities. The account draws on rights group documentation of the strike location and casualties. The incident fits a pattern of aerial operations in contested regions, where verification of targets remains difficult for outside observers. BBC emphasizes that the army has offered no statement on whether the court session was the intended target or how civilian presence was assessed beforehand. Next, construction has begun on a road bridge connecting Russia and North Korea in the Far East. The project marks the first direct road connection between the neighbors. Reports indicate the work is proceeding away from major international attention. The bridge is located in a remote border region far from European conflict zones. Deutsche Welle describes the bridge as a practical infrastructure step that has drawn concern in Ukraine over potential military logistics implications. The outlet notes the location's distance from European theaters, yet flags the symbolic and practical strengthening of ties between Moscow and Pyongyang. No official statements from either government on the project's timeline have been released. Deutsche Welle adds that the development occurs in the Russian Far East, where attention has remained limited compared with other bilateral projects. In Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim's ruling coalition recorded lower support in recent local polls. The results suggest weakening backing at the grassroots level. Observers link the trend to domestic economic and governance concerns. The decline appeared in specific districts rather than a uniform national shift. Nikkei Asia frames the outcome as a signal that the coalition is losing shine after earlier gains. The reporting ties the decline to voter sentiment in specific districts rather than a national reversal. The piece notes that national elections remain distant, leaving time for adjustments in policy focus. Nikkei Asia observes that the coalition had previously benefited from stronger local-level performance before these latest results. A survey of UK factories showed production rising at the quickest pace in nearly 2 years. The S&P Global poll recorded the fourth straight month of expansion. Firms cited easing tariff uncertainty but expressed caution over potential Middle East supply disruptions. The poll covered a broad sample of manufacturing companies and compared results month to month. The Guardian presents the data as evidence of resilience in the manufacturing sector despite broader geopolitical risks. The report notes that oil and gas price volatility remains a key worry for future costs. The survey covers a broad sample of companies and provides month-to-month comparisons. The Guardian adds that manufacturers expressed an upbeat mood in July even while monitoring possible longer-term effects from conflict in the Middle East. Britain's AstraZeneca is in talks to acquire US-based Bristol-Myers Squibb in a deal valued near $400 billion. The combination would create one of the world's largest pharmaceutical groups. Both companies focus heavily on cancer treatments. AstraZeneca already holds a market value near £196 billion as the second biggest listed company in the UK. The Guardian reports the discussions as a potential reshaping of the global drug industry, with AstraZeneca's market value already near £196 billion. The piece notes Bristol-Myers Squibb's $133 billion valuation and its Princeton headquarters. No final agreement has been confirmed. The Guardian identifies Pascal Soriot as AstraZeneca's longtime chief executive overseeing the talks and highlights the combined entity's position as potentially the world's fourth largest drug maker. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Romanian authorities detonated a rock obstruction in the Danube to increase water flow to a nuclear power plant. The action followed a nationwide state of emergency declared last week due to low river levels. The measure aims to maintain electricity output during the current heat wave. The explosion addressed an immediate operational constraint at the plant. The Guardian describes the controlled explosion as a direct engineering response to record low water levels that had threatened cooling systems. The report places the step within Romania's August emergency declaration and notes expected peak temperatures later in the week. The intervention addresses an immediate operational constraint rather than a long-term infrastructure change. The Guardian adds that the heatwave peak is forecast for Wednesday and Thursday, with temperatures expected to approach all-time records. Now, to really understand this story, there's something most coverage leaves out. Most reporting on yen movements treats government action as a simple switch that instantly resets exchange rates. In practice, interventions require the selling or buying of large volumes of foreign currency reserves, often coordinated across central banks to avoid immediate reversal by private traders. The US-Japan operation this week followed a pattern seen in past episodes where one central bank supplies dollars while the other supplies yen, with the scale calibrated to shift market expectations rather than exhaust reserves. Because the yen's weakness had already raised Japan's import bill, the intervention also serves domestic price stability goals, even as it aligns with U.S. interest in orderly currency markets. Knowing this mechanism, when headlines announce a joint intervention, readers can check whether follow-through purchases continue or whether the move was a one-day signal. The concrete detail to verify next time is the reported volume of reserves deployed and whether the target exchange rate holds after the initial announcement. Historical episodes show that markets often test the new level within days, requiring authorities to decide whether to reinforce the move or accept partial reversal. Central banks typically disclose limited information about exact volumes at first, leaving traders to infer scale from subsequent price action and official comments. This opacity means observers must track both the spot rate and statements from finance ministries over multiple sessions to judge success. If you want to go deeper on the yen intervention, compare how Nikkei Asia and Bloomberg are covering it. Tomorrow, watch for whether the yen holds near 155 against the dollar without further coordinated action. That's Omni View. As always, compare outlets, look for primary documents, and separate what's known from what's assumed. The world is complicated, but it's not beyond understanding, and you just spent a few minutes understanding it better. If that's worth something to you, subscribe wherever you listen. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the Nara Network. a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Models and Agents for Beginners. Artificial Intelligence Explained Simply for Beginners and Curious Teens. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. Following the long arcs, story trackers on naranetwork.com follow major programs across episodes: Tesla, SpaceX, AI, space science, and more. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.